In 1994, Harley-Davidson walked into the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office with one of the strangest requests in intellectual property history. They wanted to trademark a sound, not a jingle, not a slogan, the actual exhaust note of their motorcycle engines. That unmistakable potato, potato, potato rumble you can hear from 3 blocks away. 9 competitors filed oppositions. Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, and 5 others lined up to fight it. After 6 years and tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees, Harley dropped the application. But here is the thing that makes this story fascinating. The reason Harley lost was not because the sound was not distinctive. It was because by 1994, almost every major motorcycle manufacturer on Earth was already building V-twin cruisers designed to sound exactly like a Harley. They had been copying the formula for over a decade. And that raises a question worth spending the next 25 minutes exploring. How did one American company, working with an engine design they did not even invent, create something so compelling that the entire global motorcycle industry reorganized around it? This is the story of the V-twin engine that defined a segment, nearly died, and became the most copied powertrain in motorcycle history. Let us start with an uncomfortable truth that Harley fans might not love. Harley-Davidson did not invent the V-twin motorcycle engine. The V-twin configuration was actually invented by Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach in Germany back in 1889, and it was not even for motorcycles. It was designed for stationary and automotive use. The first V-twin motorcycle was built by a British company called Princeps Autocar in 1902. Glenn Curtis had one running in the United States in 1903. Indian Motorcycle, Harley's arch-rival, debuted a V-twin prototype on August 5, 1904, and entered full production by 1907. Indian's 39 cubic inch, 42-degree V-twin swept first, second, and third place at the 1911 Isle of Man TT. This was years before Harley had a reliable V-twin on the market. Harley's first attempt at a V-twin was the Model 5D in 1909. It was a 49.5 cubic inch engine producing 7 horsepower, and it cost $325. The company built exactly 27 units, that's not a typo, 27 motorcycles. The problem was the atmospheric intake valves. They worked fine on single-cylinder engines, but when you tried to share them between 2 cylinders, the whole system fell apart. The engine was not even faster than Harley's existing single-cylinder bikes. It was pulled from production after 1 year. William Harley, who had just earned his mechanical engineering degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1907, went back to the workshop. The redesigned Model 7D arrived in 1911 with mechanically actuated intake-over-exhaust valves, and it produced 11 horsepower. That engine launched an unbroken succession of Harley V-twins that continues to this very day. So the accurate framing is this: Indian was first to market, but Harley survived and Indian did not. When Indian collapsed in 1953, Harley-Davidson became the sole custodian of the American V-twin tradition, and by the time Japanese manufacturers started looking at the cruiser market in the late 1970s, there was only one template left to copy. But the engine they were copying had evolved dramatically over those decades, and that evolution is where the real genius lives. What makes Harley's story remarkable isn't that they built a V-twin, it's that they kept refining the same basic architecture for over a century while maintaining its essential character. Every traditional Harley Big Twin from 1909 to the current Milwaukee 8 shares the same fundamental DNA. A 45-degree cylinder angle, a single crank pin connecting both pistons, pushrod actuated overhead valves from 1936 onward, and air cooling. The specifics evolved dramatically, but the soul stayed consistent. The flathead era ran from 1929 to 1973, with side valve V-twins in 45 cubic inch and 74 cubic inch forms. The 45 cubic inch flathead proved so incredibly durable that it powered military WLA motorcycles through World War II. Over 90,000 of those bikes were built for the military, and the flathead kept running in the Servicar utility vehicle until 1973. That's a 44-year production run for a single-engine design. But the real revolution came in 1936 with the Knucklehead. This was Harley's first overhead valve big twin, led by co-founder William S. Harley, along with engineers Hank Syvertson and Joe Petrali. The 61 cubic inch knucklehead had a recirculating dry sump oil system and a 4-speed transmission. It established the basic architecture for every air-cooled Harley Big Twin that would follow for the next 90 years. And it was fast. In 1937, Joe Petrali set a land speed record of 136.183 miles per hour on a modified knucklehead streamliner at Daytona Beach. The engine got its nickname because the rocker shaft nuts on top of the cylinders looked like clenched knuckles. The pan head came in 1948 with aluminum cylinder heads that saved 8 pounds and introduced maintenance-free hydraulic valve lifters. The shovel head arrived in 1966 with electric starting, and it eventually grew to 80 cubic inches. But the shovel head era is also where things nearly fell apart. We will get to that crisis in a few minutes because it is essential to understanding why the rest of the industry eventually copied this formula. First, though, we need to talk about the sound, because the sound is really the key to everything. If you've ever heard a Harley at idle, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That syncopated potato rumble sounds almost organic, almost like a heartbeat. That sound is not an accident. It is a direct product of the engine's engineering, and understanding the physics explains why competitors spent decades trying to replicate it. Both pistons in a Harley V-twin share a single crank pin, which means they rise and fall nearly in unison. In a 4-stroke engine, each cylinder fires once every 720 degrees of crankshaft rotation. But here, the 45-degree cylinder angle creates something special. The front cylinder fires, and then just 315 degrees later, the rear cylinder fires. Then there is a 405-degree gap before the front fires again. This creates an uneven firing interval. 315 degrees, then 405 degrees, then 315 degrees, then 405 degrees. Bang, bang, pause, bang, bang, pause. At idle speeds of around 850 to 900 RPM, the crankshaft actually slows down during that 405-degree gap because no power stroke is pushing it forward. The heavy flywheel maintains momentum, but it cannot fully compensate. Sometimes you get a proper combustion bang, other times just a measly pop. This irregularity gives the engine what riders describe as an organic, almost biological character. And here is the engineering detail that really matters. The 45-degree angle makes the engine inherently impossible to perfectly counterbalance. Unlike a 90-degree V-twin like Ducati uses, which achieves perfect primary balance with proper counterweighting, the 45-degree layout produces vibration that no amount of engineering can fully eliminate. Harley traditionally used about 60% counterweighting as a compromise, and that vibration, felt through the seat, the handlebars, and the foot pegs, became a feature rather than a flaw. Riders describe it as a connection to the machine. An industry observer put it perfectly when he said that oddly, the V-twin's flaws are what make it so endearing. An old-school rider once told him that metric bikes do not need you, but the V-twin does. When Harley tried to trademark this sound in 1994, 9 competitors fought them in court. The argument was simple. The sound is not a creative trademark, it is a natural byproduct of basic mechanical engineering. Any V-twin with a 45-degree angle and a single-pin crankshaft will produce a similar exhaust note. The statement from Harley's Vice President of Marketing, Joanne Bishman, when they dropped the case, was telling. She said if their customers know the sound cannot be imitated, that is good enough for them. But here is the irony. By 1994, competitors had been imitating it for over a decade. But before we get to the copycats, we need to understand why this engine design became so dominant in the cruiser segment. Because that dominance was not arbitrary, it was the product of engineering characteristics that align precisely with how cruisers are actually ridden. The V-twin long-stroke design generates maximum leverage on the crankshaft at low RPM, producing a broad, flat torque curve. The Milwaukee 8117, for example, delivers 90 pound-feet of torque at just 2,400 RPM and stays above 100 pound-feet from 2,700 all the way to 4,900 RPM. Compare that to a Kawasaki ZX-10R sport bike. That 998 cubic centimeter inline 4 produces 200 horsepower, but only 84 pound-feet of torque, and that torque peaks at 11,500 RPM. Below 6,000 RPM, it feels relatively tame. Cruiser riding happens at 2,000 to 3,500 RPM, stop-and-go traffic, highway roll on acceleration without downshifting. Relaxed riding that does not require constant gear changes. The V-twin delivers immediate, accessible power from idle, which is exactly what the riding style demands. Emphasize the cruiser riding envelope. The V-twin narrow profile with cylinders arranged in a V rather than side by side like an inline four allows a compact engine between the rider's legs. The mass sits low in the chassis, creating the stable, planted feel essential to cruiser handling. The exposed cooling fins became an iconic visual element, chrome detailed and proudly displayed rather than hidden behind fairings. And the mechanical simplicity, with just 2 pistons, fewer valves, and pushrod actuation, fostered a culture of owner maintenance and personal customization that became central to the Harley experience. All of these factors combined to create a formula that competitors could not ignore. But Harley nearly lost it all before the copying even began. If you are enjoying this deep dive into motorcycle engineering history, hit that subscribe button. I cover stories like this every week, breaking down the engineering and business decisions that shaped the products we love. Now let's talk about the darkest chapter in Harley-Davidson's history. In 1969, AMF, the American Machine and Foundry Company, acquired Harley-Davidson. And over the next 12 years, they nearly destroyed everything the company had built. AMF prioritized production volume over quality. One biker magazine described Harley hardware during this era as looking like it was hammered out of iron ore by rock-wielding natives along the shores of the Milwaukee River. That is a direct quote. The numbers tell the story even more clearly. During the shovelhead era, under AMF ownership, more than 50% of motorcycles failed quality inspection coming off the assembly line. Half the bikes. The oil leaks became legendary. The reliability became a punchline. Meanwhile, Japanese manufacturers were flooding the American market with high-quality, reliable motorcycles at lower prices. Honda's CB750, introduced in 1969, had redefined what a motorcycle could be. Electric starting, disc brakes, and an inline-4 engine that did not leak oil everywhere. Harley's market share in super heavyweight motorcycles cratered from roughly 80% in 1969 to just 23% by 1983. The company was in serious trouble. On June 16, 1981, a consortium of 13 executives led by CEO Vaughn Beals and styling chief Willie G. Davidson, who was the grandson of co-founder William A. Davidson, executed an $81.5 million leveraged buyout from AMF. Their advertising slogan said it all: "The eagle soars alone." Beals was brutally honest about why they were losing. He admitted that they were being wiped out by the Japanese because the Japanese were better managers, but buying the company back was only the beginning. By December 1984, the money was running out. Citicorp grew nervous, and every other bank refused to provide financing. On December 23rd, Harley executives met with Heller Financial's Norm Blake, who initially turned them down. A second meeting that same afternoon with banker Bob Coe produced a deal. It was finalized on December 31st, giving Harley the lifeline it desperately needed. That financing deal kept the dream alive, and 3 months later, they launched the Evolution engine. And it changed everything. The Evolution engine, affectionately called the Evo, was the product of 7 years of development. It was Harley's first engine designed using computer-aided design, and CEO Vaughn Beals had one mandate for the engineering team. When the Evolution engine came out, it had to be durable, oil-tight, and bulletproof. Full aluminum construction ended the notorious oil leaks. Warranty claims dropped over 60% within 2 years of launch. Most analysts consider the Evo the engine that turned Harley-Davidson's fortunes around completely. But here is the detail that makes this comeback story even more remarkable. While the Evolution engine was being developed, Harley executives were also fighting for tariff protection from Japanese imports. In 1982, Harley petitioned the U.S. International Trade Commission for protection. On April 1, 1983, President Reagan signed a tariff imposing 45% duties on top of the existing 4.4% on all imported motorcycles over 700 cubic centimeters. The tariff would decline annually over 5 years. Japanese manufacturers responded ingeniously. Yamaha shrank its XV750 to 699 cubic centimeters. Honda reduced the VT750 to 700 cubic centimeters. Kawasaki sold its Vulcan as a 699 cubic centimeter model in the US. They were dodging the tariff threshold by 7 cubic centimeters. But here is the irony that makes this story truly fascinating. While Japanese manufacturers were copying Harley's V-twin styling, Harley executives were copying Japanese manufacturing techniques. In 1982, Harley executives visited Honda's Marysville, Ohio plant, and they were shocked and amazed at Japanese efficiency. They adopted Japanese lean manufacturing techniques, wholesale, just-in-time inventory, which they called materials as needed, statistical process control, employee involvement programs. Harley's defect rate improved from 50% to just 1%. The company that symbolized American independence saved itself by copying Japanese management. In March 1987, Beals made the unprecedented request to remove the tariff a year early. He told President Reagan that Harley no longer needed tariff relief to compete. Reagan obliged on October 9, 1987. By 1989, Harley held 59% to 65% of the U.S. heavyweight market. Japan's Research Institute of Economy, Trade, and Industry later concluded that it was Harley's own initiatives, not the tariffs, that drove the turnaround. And while Harley was clawing its way back to dominance, every major Japanese manufacturer was building their own V-twin cruiser lines. The copying had already begun. The Japanese V-twin cruiser phenomenon started with market research. In the late 1970s, American riders were customizing their Japanese motorcycles with chopper elements: high handlebars, chrome exhaust, sissy bars, extended forks. They wanted the look and feel of an air-cooled V-twin, but at a lower price than Harley-Davidson. Yamaha's United States product planning manager Ed Burke and engine designer Hap Bueno identified the opportunity, and what followed reshaped the entire industry. Yamaha struck first in 1981 with the XD750 Virago. The bike had 748 cubic centimeters and a 75-degree air-cooled V-twin, and it became the first purpose-built Japanese cruiser. It was an immediate sales hit and spawned an entire family, including the XD920 in 1982, the XV500 in 1983, and eventually the XV1100 in 1986. By the 1990s, Yamaha had launched the V-Star line and the XV600 Roadstar, a 1,602 cubic centimeter air-cooled V-twin aimed squarely at Harley-Davidson's big twin touring market. The current Yamaha Bolt, introduced in 2013 with a 942 cubic centimeter 60-degree V-twin, is explicitly described by aftermarket sources as a superior version of the Harley Sportster. Honda followed in 1983 with the VT500C and the VT750C Shadow. Early models were liquid-cooled V-twins with single overhead cam 3-valve heads, and they were criticized for missing what one reviewer called the quintessential elements of cruiser motorcycles that Harley-Davidson had established: wrong V-angle, liquid cooling instead of air, cast wheels instead of spokes. Honda methodically addressed every single shortcoming over the next 2 decades. The Shadow Ace in 1995 introduced a single-pin crankshaft specifically to replicate Harley-Davidson's uneven firing sound. The VTX 1800, launched in 2001, briefly held the title of the world's largest displacement production V-twin at 1,795 cubic centimeters. The Honda Fury in 2010 became the first production chopper from a major manufacturer. Kawasaki entered in 1985 with the VN750 Vulcan, selling it as a 699 cubic centimeters model in the United States, specifically to dodge the tariff. The Vulcan 1500 Classic in 1996 was called the first import to offer the sort of style and substance Americans wanted from a big twin. Heavily finned cylinders, a hidden radiator to mimic air cooling, floorboards, fat fenders, and staggered exhaust deliberately emulating Harley-Davidson's Softail aesthetic. The Vulcan 900 was designed to resemble the Harley-Davidson Softail Deluxe or the Fat Boy. In 2004, Kawasaki went all in with the Vulcan 2000, a 2,053 cubic centimeters V-twin that became the largest displacement production V-twin ever built. It even used pushrod valve actuation, which was unique among Japanese motorcycles, specifically to look more like Harley-Davidson. Suzuki arrived in 1985 with the VS700 Intruder, designed specifically to avoid the projected tariff cutoff, and the VS1400 Intruder. Notably, Suzuki used a 45-degree V-twin angle identical to Harley-Davidson's. The Boulevard rebrand came in 2005, and the flagship M109R in 2006 pushed the performance envelope with a 1,783 cubic centimeters, double overhead cam, V-twin producing roughly 125 to 128 horsepower. Even in Europe, the pattern held. Moto Guzzi's California series ran from 1971 to 2021, and it was launched to take on Harley-Davidson's Electra Glide. Triumph stayed with parallel twins, but adopted a 270-degree crank firing interval specifically to mimic the uneven beat of a V-twin. Between 1981 and 2006, every major motorcycle manufacturer in the world launched dedicated V-twin cruiser lines explicitly modeled on Harley's template. That's not interpretation, that's documented fact. But the V-twin's influence wasn't just engineering, it was cultural. The 1969 film Easy Rider put custom Harley choppers built from 1949 to 1952 ex-police Hydra glides into the national consciousness. The film earned $60 million on a $400,000 budget. The Captain America bike became the most recognizable motorcycle in history. Terminator 2, in 1991, put Arnold Schwarzenegger on a Fat Boy. Sons of Anarchy, which ran from 2008 to 2014, drove a new generation toward the Dyna lineup. The Harley Owners Group, known as HOG, was founded in 1983, the same year as the Reagan tariff. It became the world's largest factory-sponsored motorcycle organization, with over 1 million members and more than 1,400 chapters worldwide. Members spend 30% more than other Harley owners on clothing, accessories, and events. The Sturgis Motorcycle Rally draws an estimated 500,000 attendees annually. Harley's New York Stock Exchange ticker symbol is HOG. After World War II, veterans who purchased surplus Harleys created the chopper and outlaw motorcycle movements. The Hells Angels, founded in 1948, adopted Harleys exclusively. Former outlaw biker Hollywood Massacre argued that outlaw clubs kept Harley alive during the AMF years through extreme brand loyalty that amounted to billions in free advertising. The cruiser segment that Harley defined became the largest category in American motorcycling. Cruisers account for approximately 38% of all motorcycles on U.S. roads, roughly 3.6 million vehicles, making them the single biggest on-road motorcycle type. In the global heavyweight market, cruisers held over 65% of market share in 2024. The global cruiser motorcycle market was valued at $33.24 billion in 2025. At Harley's peak in 2006, they shipped 349,196 motorcycles wholesale, generated over $5.5 billion in revenue, and posted $1.04 billion in net income. The company had achieved 20 consecutive years of revenue growth. They commanded roughly 75% of the U.S. touring motorcycle segment, and approximately 75% of Harley riders made repeat purchases, a loyalty rate competitors could not approach. Over 70% of all Harley-Davidson motorcycles sold worldwide are powered by V-twin engines. The market has shifted in recent years. Harley's 2025 revenue fell to $4.47 billion, down nearly 14% year over year. Japanese manufacturers have largely retreated from the large V-twin cruiser market. Yamaha discontinued most star models. Honda ended the VTX. New model lineups increasingly feature parallel twin cruisers like the Kawasaki Vulcan S and the Honda Rebel 500, aimed at younger, less committed riders. The era of V-twin cruiser arms races has ended. But the template Harley established remains the foundation of what a cruiser motorcycle fundamentally is. So what is the honest conclusion to this story? Harley-Davidson did not invent the V-twin. Indian had 1 year earlier, and the configuration originated in Germany in 1889. Harley's first attempt in 1909 was a failure. The company faced serious challenges under AMF and during the Japanese invasion of the 1980s. The great irony of the comeback is that Harley saved itself by copying Japanese manufacturing while Japanese companies were copying Harley's style. But none of that diminishes the central achievement. Harley-Davidson took an imperfect engine architecture, one that is inherently imbalanced, limited in power, and prone to vibration, and turned its flaws into the most compelling sensory experience in motorcycling. The uneven firing interval became a heartbeat. The vibration became a connection, the mechanical simplicity became a culture of customization, and the sound became so iconic they tried to trademark it. When Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, and Suzuki collectively spent billions developing V-twin cruiser lines between 1981 and 2006, they were not just copying an engine layout. They were acknowledging that Harley had defined what a cruiser motorcycle fundamentally is: a long, low machine built around a V-twin engine, delivering torque at walking pace revolutions per minute, shaking and rumbling in a rhythm that feels alive. Every competitor validated this template by replicating it, and none of them could fully replicate the emotional response it creates. That is the real story, not a perfect engine, a perfectly imperfect one. an engine so deeply tied to American motorcycle culture that the whole world had to copy it. And 115 years after that first failed Model 5D rolled out of Milwaukee with its broken atmospheric valves, the V-twin is still the beating heart of everything Harley-Davidson builds. If you want to see more stories about the engineering and business decisions that shape the products we love, subscribe and hit the bell. I have a whole series planned on how companies create products so good that everyone else has to follow. I will see you in the next one.